Hey, good evening, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the Creativity 202 check in for lesson 24, The Gamer, and this is the US Aussie session. Um, my brother, I think, is going to join us here in a little bit when he gets back from the restaurant. He's down here helping me with home improvements this week, so good. It was good to catch up with him in person because we couldn't get up there at Thanksgiving. Um, let's. I'm going to go ahead and ring the tones and move us in to the session and check in with you guys after the tones. Luke, how are you doing today?
Yeah, we're all good. Um, just getting ready for Christmas. We break up Friday next week, so just getting done and getting ready for that. So that just trading at night time at the moment, and yeah, otherwise all good down here.
Good. And Dan, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty well. The cold weather came in, but we're and enjoying up and starting to get ready for Christmas as well.
Yeah, I was watching something on TikTok the other day. It was like the kid's little short video as he wakes up and he hears that Mariah Carey Christmas song and he can't escape it all day, no matter where he goes. It's all I want for Christmas is you, and he just drives him nuts. I feel the same way sometimes with the Hallmark movie channel in my own house, if I am allowed to say that. But anyway, hey, so let's go ahead and get us in. I'll hit the tones, and then we'll go ahead and get started and see where we go. The Gamer, Luke.
So yeah, I thought this lesson was right up my alley because I think I've been trying to um, uh, review my trading system and game it a little bit. Um, but for that, the one of the exercises was think of a situation where you need to swap sides or the umpire changes the rules. And I thought back to some footy matches this year when my kids were involved with football matches and they have to swap sides because the other team doesn't have the numbers. And it's interesting to watch when those kids are on the other team. They look like um, they're not trying as hard, and then you've also got the kids who try even harder. They they feel like they can be a little bit more physical because they're their own team. Whereas the other team, they're not as physical, they're not as timid, which is interesting. You've got different types of personalities involved with when those players are playing on a different team. And I haven't been a coach for a long time. And in terms of that, it's interesting to work out the thought for the coaches to work out which person would be suitable to go on the other team and and make sure there's still a game involved and that person's not going to just fall to their time because I'm trading not so much the Aussie, but the Euro, USD on a shorter time frame. Then time the main reason I feel for that is I don't want to feel like I'm a dog chasing a car all the time. I'm trying to reduce the number of entries and not stop and reverse all the time, just follow the overall trend of the PISA. And just to see how that feels, what the stats on that come out to, as opposed to trying to be in and out quite as many times as I have been with the Aussie. I looked at the Euro session yesterday, and Sunil, can't pronounce this guy's name, Kahneman's work, and your about the anxiety of success. I've skim read it before. I think I've probably read 1 or 2 chapters and just got too busy. But I did look up there was a quote online that says, "We fear loss twice as much as we relish success." And for what I'm doing at the moment, I find that quote to be really exquisite, because what I would like to do is to put that quote on my wall, but I would make it this quote for me: "We fear success, so dummy, trust the humble PISA." Because when I'm trading at nighttime, I don't want to be as agile as what I'm trading during the day on the dollar, because I would like to still sit down, spend time with the kids, and be able to engage in conversation, and that trust in the PISA a little bit more is going to potentially, I don't have the stats yet, potentially just achieve the objectives of what I want through my trading at a lower mental load of what I have been doing recently. And last week I said that I have started to do some back testing, and I've got a programmer looking at doing bot trading on some of the frog champions on the US stocks, especially Cliff and Indices, EWJ, Mexico, and Brazil, and trying to do a bit of back testing on that to see, following the PISA on more relaxed settings, to make sure I'm in the trade for longer. But yes, that does leave a lot on the table when you've got those massive three. She said the PISA is the automation that helps with the offloading of stress and of micromanagement. And I don't want to take it too far. I just want to work out exactly where that happy medium is in between trusting the PISA and all some sniper exits at some point. Yeah, in terms of the back testing, I just need to set some initial parameters and look at it from there. It also says, in terms of risk aversion, that the tendency that we have is risk adverse behaviors, a preference for status quo, even when change is in our best interest. So I thought of that a bit more and thought about the status quo. The status quo, I find, at all costs. And we can't afford an execution risk loss in comparison to the capital preservation, and that we want to keep our profits running. That is, profits running is not the status quo. So the change in that would be to trust the PISA. That's the guiding light in the trade. And in doing that, we sort of let the trade run its course, and we're not trying to jump at every little rabbit that comes across the road. The euro in the trade, I thought of that and I laughed. I just thought, I don't think there's much fun in the actual trade. It's constantly reevaluating the trade. Where's the stop and reverse? Where's the high of the day, the low of the day? Where's the 2R battle drill? Where's the next entry? Has it hit the Z3? Should I be looking at Dragon Horn? 1, 2, 3. The thoughts that come into play when I'm in those sort of trades, when it hits the Z3, I constantly have the not good at this. I hate it when this happens, and sometimes in the last couple of weeks I've just been putting in take profits, and that's when the anxiety leaves because it's got to a maximum point of 2 or 3 R, and I'm just taking it, walked away, come back after 10 minutes, don't look at that trade. That trade's finished. You can look at that at the assessment phase to work out what could I have made if I just followed the system. So that's what I've been trying to do as well. I also enjoy the challenge of trading. I find it's somewhat sadistic in nature, and that just proves the point that I like to do things that are sadistic. And overcoming that and thinking about that a bit more, in doing the plan, prepare, execute, assess, it is not so. It's more about how you can execute professionally and do it in a professional manner. But sometimes I do feel that whilst in the trade, it is a little bit taking away a lot of your energy. I have not read the amount that's been recommended to me by Ken and other people. I really just got to bite the bullet and read it because it's got a lot of wisdom in it. I've looked it up through the Euro session and stumbled on this quote about wise resource management. And one way of handling a mishandling of resources leads to defeat is through extensive and exhaustive battles. Waging war is like igniting a fire. If the flame burns too hot or for too long, it will burn itself out. I compare that quote to what I was doing in the Aussie dollar for 10 hours a day. That has been exhausting. I've been getting the reps in, working out the system is, the entries, the exits, the management. But what I need to do now is step back from that and look at what my longer term objectives are of trading, how I can systemize it, how I can do it for longer in terms of make sure I'm not burning out. And therefore, I need to work out what my objectives are for trading, how many trades I want to make a day, how much I want to sit in front of the screen to do it. And then from that, what am I expecting in terms of my multiples per day, per week? And also work out what the objective is in the actual trading day. I don't do a lot of planning. If there's a weakness that I have in my trading, I don't plan enough. And I know that's something I need to focus on a lot more. I feel like I'm really good at the execution and assessing, but I need to also look at the plan and prepare a lot more. I don't think I focus on that very well. I find I know we've got to also do a review of the creativity course so far, Ken, but all I can say is my work in progress just getting bigger and bigger. I hasten to think, going back over these lessons, how many things I've said I need to do this and I need to do that, which is fantastic because of all the aha moments I made myself in doing these lessons is fantastic. And I found it really beneficial to work out what my trading methods are going to be. I just go and watch it, and I binge watched one that she recommended from last week, which was great. That was the proof rule. That was really good. Yeah, and that's sort of me for this week. I found this lesson was really what I needed to do for where I'm at to. The insights that I've made in my current strategies of the Aussie dollar, then also looking at the change in the time zones, it makes it even easier to trade the London session at night time and how I can fit that into my overall view of trading. So yeah, that's me for the week. Thank you. I hope
Hey, Dan.
So the in the context of creativity class, the gamer lesson seemed to me to be about how an old dog like myself could learn new tricks by exercising a certain amount of creativity, looking at alternate approaches to doing things. And I like the way Luke mentioned Sun Tzu. Thought maybe that had some relation to this since there was a lot of military history in the lesson. And I went and looked up best Sun Tzu quote. And I when to fight and when not to fight. Sometimes we tend to too many battles to jump in and try too many things at once. And that was in a way where the trader's exercise could be a little bit perilous for me. But I'll come to that. Let me back for a second. To the point of teaching an old dog new tricks. I learned it today, which was I noticed when I was watching the France versus Poland game on Xfinity, there was this little message on the top right of the screen that said, hold down the arrow to select watching game highlight. And indeed, if you hold down your arrow, then get a timeline across the bottom of the screen that represents the 90 minutes. And the little line, for every time there was a bit of excitement, because soccer can be a lot of passing sometimes, or a lot of back and forth without much happening on the goal. And even as if it was a shot or if it was a corner or certain other metadata, somebody went through and watched a game and tagged all these things. And so if you see like 3 or 4 lines, you can just sit and watch through it all. That's what I like to do. But if you see, there's going to be 10 or 15 minutes with no excitement, you can push the button and you're right forward to the next play. And so with that, I got through France and Poland, and then I got through England and Senegal. So that was very helpful. Really like lesson, I guess it was part of this gamer lesson. It was an interesting way of combining a lot of the aspects of RLCO trading, like the lack of a directional bias, use of statistical methods, the turbo concepts, all of that. I definitely would like to get there. I've often wanted to be able to front run a promising long-term or promising swing trade by jumping in with a tight intraday stop, and then taking half of it off the table and letting the rest of it run, no lose and dinner for two, or lose everything to gain. And that's definitely where I want to get to. But I'm still at a point where I need to know when to fight and not to fight. So I'll probably fight that battle once I get a little bit further with some of the basics. In terms of my progress, I took a Van Tharp course a few months ago called Peak 202, in which one of the exercises was your reinvention game. And my reinvention game was I would actually try doing some day trading for 2 hours at a time. I've talked about that before. So I've been doing that. And I had my first 30 trades and went back and looked at the R multiples, and I had SQN of 2, which meant it's a good system. So I upped my risk a bit and I started trading some more. Another 20 and now the SQN's back in the toilet. And I think maybe what happened was I became overconfident. I started trading more symbols. I started trading more patterns. I noticed there was a couple days, I always write down my mistakes. And I noticed there was a couple days when I had about 4 or 5 mistakes, including one of them that made me $200. But, you can't really count on that happening. $200 was a big gain because I was supposed to be risking 10, right? So you can't really count on that happening. And so I regrouped. I decided next time I play that my objective will be no mistakes. And that's what I'm focusing on, no mistakes. And so I did another 2.5 hours. That was Thursday or Friday, I guess. Only one mistake. So that was better. And I'm looking forward to resuming this week and see where I go. I couldn't do it today because I had to play the long-term game because we were crossing the 200-day moving average, and that one of my old active long-term trading systems had to enter the market. I confess I was not confident about entering the market. And I actually didn't have to because it hasn't made a higher high over the monthly bar yet. Well, it did on Friday, but I missed that. So I wanted a Monday higher high. And of course, I didn't get a higher high today. But nonetheless, when I make a higher high, those 3 ETFs, I will go in because it would be a mistake not to follow my rules and not to continue my system. But my rule does say that I can change my position size. So I'm running that one at a quarter position size. I don't have a big confidence of the 200-day moving average represents the new bull market. So I think we're in a sideways market, and that's my long-term trading. The third one I'm doing, or the other one I'm doing the ETF too. And as suggested in that trading plan, learning to master the signals and the exits and all that, and that's going pretty well. So that's my game and my work in progress for now.
Brother?
Made it successfully out here to Kansas City. I'm actually in the same town as Ken right now. Just a little bit signing on and get the hotel room squared away and all that. So my apologies. So tonight's lesson is about been playing 1970s with the same group of guys, and I would call it coincidence, but it isn't. Every single person that I have been in contact with in that game for this amount of time has been incredibly successful in their life, and I believe it is having a lot to do with the ability it's the same elements. There's no people whenever you do something completely say, oh, I better call their wife and let them know, this guy just murdered a whole town full of people, because it's a safe space. It's a it's a fictitious thing. What doing that for a lifetime, I know has contributed to me being able to mentally try out different scenarios in all things and explore certain facets of my own personality. So that I know has made me trading in a much different, robust, and less fearless way. Um, because I've done that my whole life. Well, what if? And think through the situation in a completely hypothetical way, and say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I can, this or that or whatever. But I guess my point is that having a lifetime of this game theory behind me has really, really helped in my trading. Of all time, of course, I've been influenced by the guy I'm next to on the screen here, but Sun Tzu, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, the Stoics, very heavily influenced by those guys. That helped me by trading as well too. It's like, well, what do you have to? And it's helped me in my nursing practice too. It's like, well, what do you have to fear? Well, the worst thing that can happen in the ICU is somebody's going to die. Well, if I don't do anything, and that's this person's going to die. And might die, and it probably doesn't have anything to do with me. So let's just do it. And I don't know if that sounds like I'm an old crunchy critical care nurse, but sometimes you have, in order to get past your block, just set yourself up into the worst case. What is the absolute worst thing I can do? Or what is the absolute worst outcome? Well, the worst outcome is to start all my trades and not put on a trailing stop and then turn off my computer and walk away. Well, that isn't going to happen. So that's where I guess in my I've done with Dan and when I'm doing my live trading with you guys, I'm like, okay, guys, I kind of reversed the roles and said, all right, well, tell me why I shouldn't take this trade. We've done everything that we can do to assure that, that this trade has the potential to work. But everything says, all my rules say, take this trade. Somebody come up with some other reason why I shouldn't. And if it doesn't happen, I say, well, I'm just going to take it. In that way, my ego, my expectation, all that goes out the window. And then I'm just watching what the market does with my, because you have to realize that the second you hit, that's what Ken talks about when he talks about, experiencing the 1 hour loss immediately. Well, but we all know that the second that thing, if it's moving in an upward trend, the second I put it on, it's 90% sure that that's going to go at least, excuse me, a little bit beyond complete loss. So I'm never going to take a 1 hour trading. It's gonna end up benefiting you a lot. Playing roles, the monkey and the fireman and all that, and the exec. I think you have to put back in the spirit of trading, the passionate trader. Ken and I are very different traders. He's very analytical. I'm very empathic. So I think for the most people, there's going to be very few people that are going to be as comfortable with trading the way that I trade. I don't think I could. I don't think I could trade the way Ken trades because there's just not any. I'm more of a like I said, an empathic trader. So I just sense I'm more in tune with the humanness and recognizing, well, if I am feeling this about this trade and feeling good about it, I should do one of two things: either embrace it or go exactly the opposite, because now I know that I'm back just one more breath or two more breaths or another couple heartbeats and see what happens. So I find that when that and I found the balance, that's made all the difference in my trading. So that's where gamesmanship, relating it back to the lesson tonight, that's where the gaming and the role playing and all that stuff has come into fruition, if you will. So I hope.
Hey, sorry about that disruption. Microsoft decided to help me out with a system update at the least opportune time. So let me share a screen here real quick.
Have to add that to my worst case scenario list. Microsoft
Yeah.
updates my system without my asking.
Well,
DFMEA,
I turned my eyes away from the screen for a minute and said, "Well, I gave you 3 seconds. You didn't do anything with it, so it must be okay." Let's see, share screen 2. Yeah, let me know when you can see that. Can you see the? What are you seeing?
it started screen sharing.
Okay, you should. Can you see that now? The note sheet.
I cannot.
While we're waiting for that,
Yeah.
Bill, the other side of the trade consciously. Yep. In other words, like in the EPAM lesson, Ken was talking about, in certain cases, your SSC fails, and right away get the collapsing dragon. I'm going to be watching that scenario and just make myself do that just to get used to doing. And that's like the gamer, because you're kind of switching teams.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, essentially that's when we're talking about using the visual box trading. That is the perfect time. If you're undecided, it looks like an SSC, well, hang a box on it. Give yourself some parameters and say, well, I think this is it, but I want to be a little more sure. Put a box on it. Put an MMRB right there, right in the middle.
Yeah.
And say, all right, now just take what the market gives me. Yeah. And I'm going to be okay. The other half of that is, and I'm going to be okay with whatever it gives me, even if it stops and reverses right after I go in.
Yeah, rather than slinking away in defeat, you jump right back in on the winning side.
Yeah, because what has Ken said a million times? So then you just get right back in. So you just stop and reverse and you take the other side. Who cares?
And I understand that in theory, it's kind of training myself to do it. I think I'll need to actually have a session where that's the objective. Like I had one where the objective was make no mistakes, because I felt like the last one I made too many mistakes. This next one, it'll be, I'm going to do a stop and reverse. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that is the next. Yeah, that's the next step. Well, recognizing that if you did something that was not in your rules, that's a mistake. if you're saying it's a mistake to take a trade and it reverses on you, I would argue that that's not a mistake. It's simply what the market gave you.
Yeah, no, that would not be a mistake, because
Yeah.
my rules would say I can do collapsing dragon, I can do SSC, I can do this, I can do that. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's
Sorry.
just, the tendency is when you just had a loss, you want to kind of back away and lick your wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in judo, if you're trying to throw a guy to the left and he resists you, so you got 1 unit of energy being canceled by 1 unit of energy in the other direction. So when you stop and reverse that, it ends up smashing him, because now there's 2 units of energy taking him in the same direction that he was pulling. So you learn to match and reinforce energy in that judo. So if it doesn't work one way, you go the other. So when you're studying one throw, you always end up studying 2 throws. What happens if it goes the way I want it to go? And then what's the stop and reverse feel like? So you end up learning all the little variations. It's all part of one family of throw, but it has little, part A or B or C or D. Yeah. So the gamer lesson was a good one for me. I've been playing games, war games and whatnot for 50 years. And one of the things that it reminded me of is I've been learning to just relax a little bit more with playing chess at chess.com, playing against different styles of robot players. And then just learning to play against humans again, and not worried about the results so much, and laughing at mouse slips and some of that stuff. So just relaxing and enjoying it a little bit more. That was not always the case for me with chess. There was a time when I took it way too serious for what else I was doing. On my side, there's a really good essay, I think, on the dream that I had earlier this week about priming the brain. I'm not going to reread that whole thing, but it really gets down to the idea of saturating your brain with positive endorphins for embracing creativity when you need it. That if you want that brain already loaded like popcorn, I used this analogy yesterday. You want to be like microwave popcorn that starts popping at 45 seconds in the microwave. Well, you want to be at 40 seconds. You want to do all the things so that thing is ready to go when you need it. And when you look at 2 bags of popcorn that haven't popped yet, you can't tell by inspection which one has had 0 seconds in the microwave, which has had 40 seconds. But there's a whole world of difference in how much latent energy has been stored in there for potential energy. And that's what I'm learning creativity really does for us. The other insight I had since we were talking World Cup was the idea of Leo Messi. When he plays one-on-one, he has 4 ways to get past you. To your left, to your right, over your head, or through your legs. And so he's always got 4 options, so he never worries, because you can't take the ball from him, and the closer you get, the easier it is for him to make his move. So he's comfortable in those tight spaces. But if you put 5 guys around him, he actually has more choices. There's more moves that he can see, because he can put 4 different moves on any one of the 5 players. Plus there's the space in between them that's an extra dimension. So the more players you put around Messi, the more opportunities for creativity he has, because he knows he can make the play from muscle memory. And the other thing that he knows is that all he's got to do is get the ball out of that circle, because if there's 5 guys around him, there's only 5 more field players against his 9 teammates. So the more you put on Messi, the easier it is for Argentina to have a winning play. So that's part of what reframing is like, that you don't want to get rid of the ball. You want to have the ball, and you want to feel the pressure of close-in spaces, because you get to make bigger plays. I'll be talking about some of that stuff at the Quantum Storytelling Conference that I'm going to here in a couple of weeks. I wanted to share this one. This was a screenshot of the EPAM trade frame that was in the lesson 24. And it was a hybrid trade that day where the sideways quiet channel in the afternoon expanded into a really nice, about a 4 or 5 hour move. And the recovery or the retracement only took back half. So it was postured, as you can see in the chart above it. That was the third day in a row it did not fail further. That was also the day that the RL10 penetrated the dragon, and the next day it was ready to make a breakout of the PSAR. So this was early days in EPAM, that it had gone from spring in the yellow to winter in the red, then bottomed out, and it had 3 days of failure to fail further. And then intraday, you could see there was some buying pressure after the morning noise. And so that was an exercise in framing a critical state in that yellow box. We just framed it from a breakout of the high of the day, and then the lower limit of the box was at the very bottom of the RL10. So a collapsing dragon box. So you let the trade frame itself. And it had fallen so far that there was clearly, 4 to 1 just to get back to where it had been before the great collapse. So it was kind of a simple frame that way. But if it had failed, then we would estimate that the move to the downside was as large as the previous sell-off. So in either case, in that little series of dojis, you had again microwave popcorn just ready to go. Well, that was in March. And in the trade, if you listened all the way through the video, you said, hey, there was a good chance for this thing to go from where it was at, I think it was around 180 all the way back up to 360. And, so within about 3 weeks, it went halfway back up the stack. In 6 weeks, it was 3/4 of the way. And then by August, it had retraced all the way to the previous price level, which had preceded the massive sell-off. So when you look at it this way, that first blue circle is the trade frame that we looked at on the intraday, and we said, well, we just measured the risk to reward in both directions and said, you don't have to pay much for the potential of a large move. I don't know which way it's going to go. All I got to do is follow the price. And here within 2 days, the thing had more than paid off. But if you stayed with it, that thing had a chance to get all the way back to the original frame. And so sometimes it's good to go back and take a look at those and say, what were the follow-throughs? What do those moves look like? And how many bites at the apple were there really? There were a number, like around in June and into July, you could see it was in a sideways quiet channel, but it was starting to narrow, and the highs were not shifting, but the lows were getting shallower and shallower. So there's some upward pressure that the buyers are coming in sooner and sooner, that the bears are diminishing faster and faster. There was no clear breakup, but once it did, that's when it zoomed all the way back up to 360. So once in a while, it's kind of neat to go back and take a look at those follow-throughs. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about tonight. Just to reinforce what Bill was saying, that the habits of mind that you develop once you start, adopting different points of view and taking on personas, the more comfortable and natural it is. And the more practiced you are, the less likely you are to fall prey to being absorbed by your own persona. Sometimes I think that early in the psychological work, people think there is something like an ideal trader persona for them. Maybe there is, but my worry is that you go too far that way, and that you try to make that persona too perfect, and you try to live up to some kind of standard of perfection, when all you need to be is a little bit better than the other guy. You don't got to outrun the bear. You just got to be faster than the other guy. So I think that the more practice you have with adopting different roles, personas, habits, timeframes, just the easier it is to move in and out of the particular trade for management purposes. That's just a skill that comes with practice. So that's everything that I wanted to say on there. So I'm going to ring the tone and then ask you guys to listen internally for the word to carry you forward into the week ahead, and then we'll call it and get a chance to reset before tonight's session. So here we go. Aho, and here we go. And Luke, keyword.
Relaxed.
Dan.
Flexible.
William.
Double check.
Mine is tap dancing. Hey, I'm gonna call it a little bit early. I got to run upstairs for a few minutes and want to reset before tonight's session, and I got to stitch together the two video sections because of that interruption. But good to hear from you guys. I would take the time and listen to yesterday's session from the Euros. There were there's some detailed notes in that lesson in the activity, and some good commentary that we had in there. Sunal was especially brilliant as usual. So take good care, guys, and I shall see you shortly in the regular nightly podcast. Take care.
Yeah, I'm going to check out for a second too.